Hello out there, Caniac Nation. Thanks for joining us for session 51 of Caniac Sessions. I'm Griff,
And I'm Brandon.
and unfortunately, we don't have AB with us tonight. We were supposed to. He was supposed to be here. We had it planned and everything, and then he had some family coming to town. So that's where he's at, doing that family stuff. That's important. So Brandon from the Warning Take was kind enough to join us to just have a conversation here. I told him, I was like, I don't really know what we're going to talk about. This kind of the
Oh, they
dog
took
days.
care of that for us.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting there. So yeah, it's like the dog days of summer, right? No news hardly. Yesterday when I was trying to figure out like what are we going to talk about tomorrow. We're just going to continue stirring the pot on these rumors over and over and over again, or you know, but the hockey gods and the Carolina Hurricanes gods took care of us today. The news on Kuzi dropped, which we're going to get to. We have plenty of things to talk about concerning that. And we took care of one of our RFAs today in Jack Drury, who came back on a 2-year, $1.725 million annual average value. So that's some good news. We've been kind of waiting on this little log jam to drop, and I think the Kuzi situation kind of freed up some more money, so these things could start happening. But before we get going here, first things first, we're brought to you by DraftKings and BetterHelp as a member of THPN. That's the Hockey Podcast Network. We are also promotional partners with SeatGeek. Sign up with SeatGeek at SeatGeek.com. Use promo code Caniac Sessions. That's one word, no space between Caniac and Sessions. And get $20 off your first ticket purchase. It helps you, it helps us, and it helps SeatGeek. All right. Brandon, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
Pretty good, man. A good week so far?
Oh yeah. That's just the monsooning here is not helping the one over there on the couch. He's you can't see him behind the microphone, but he's been a little on edge the last couple of days.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my dogs don't get like that. My kids do. My daughter can't stand the storms, but
What's weird is the Chihuahua doesn't phase him. My big dog though, he don't like it.
yeah. Well, it's supposed to storm here tonight, but we'll see. So, yeah, let's get right into it. This session is called we'll see, what is it? Unplanned and Unscripted, right? This is what I decided to call it because we're just going to wing it. We're just going to talk about the Canes and see where it takes us. I asked for some questions out there amongst the listeners, got some of those that we'll get to. But let's just start, from the top. So a couple days ago, I guess, I don't remember when it was. It was maybe over the weekend or Monday. There was a tweet from a Russian media agency, and it was basically like, hey, Evgeny Kuznetsov is going to sign a 4-year deal in the KHL with SKA, right? St. Petersburg. And it was kind of a shock, to be honest, right? Nobody really thought that Kuzi would go back to back to Russia. Reason one being that he was leaving $6 million on the table, that was due to him this upcoming season. And two, he was under contract for 1 more year. So it was like, let's see what happens. Let's just watch it and see what happens. Adam Gold on 99.9 The Fan kind of said in his show that day after that news dropped, yeah, I've had some conversations with my sources from the inside and close to the organization, and this is going to happen, basically. And sure enough, today, probably this morning, I believe it was maybe 11 o'clock, 11:15, Frank Saravalli, dropped a little nugget like, hey, I'm hearing Evgeny Kuznetsov will be placed on unconditional waivers for the purpose of a mutual contract termination. And sure enough, right at noon, like clockwork, the organization posted it, and it's happening. So looks like Kuznetsov is returning to Russia to sign a 4-year contract with in the KHL. and we'll just talk about it. Your thoughts in general on the Kuzi situation, his time here, and him returning to Russia.
So in a way, I'm not surprised by this. Now, it didn't shake out exactly how I thought it would. Here's what I initially thought. That report came out, which, it's not uncommon for players that are from overseas for reports to come out from media agencies over there that find out stuff before you may find out over here in North America. What I actually thought was going on here, I thought Kuzi was making a backup plan in the event that Carolina bought him out, and that's where that news was coming from. That's what I thought was happening. Because that's not unheard of for players to make plans to go play overseas, whether they're from here or wherever, in the event that them playing in North America and the NHL falls through. I think that this is probably what was waiting on Kuznetsov anyway when the season was over, even if he was never traded to Carolina. I think more than anything, he just kind of wants to go because, he's got a young family and everything. I think that that's where he wants to live, ultimately, is in his home country. So he probably was making some sort of advanced plans to go back there. It's just materialized a year earlier than what everyone initially thought. So the way I thought it was going to shake out was that he was going to end up staying, and that SKA St. Petersburg was just saying, hey, if you do become available, this is on the table. So, and it's also weird to me that Tractor didn't make him an offer because that's who he played for before he came over here. So
Right.
it's just, it kind of surprised me. It kind of didn't. There's pros and cons to this outcome and him staying another season. But it's also like the Hurricanes have made it pretty apparent that they're starting to tool for the future, and they're looking more at their long-term pieces. And I never saw Kuznetsov as a definitive long-term piece. So this is actually a good outcome for the Canes in regards. They free up that $4 million cap space. It ties into the other piece of news we're going to have here in a little bit. And this should make getting Jarvis signed. And I'm thinking Natchez is going to stay. I really do at this point. I think if he was going to get traded, it would have happened by now.
That's what it's looking like. It's looking like that's going to be the case. And I mean, it could always happen as we go on in the off season and we approach September and training camp that somebody just makes the organization offer they can't refuse. But that's, I don't know how likely that is. But yeah, that's what it's looking like. But I'll just elaborate a little bit on Kuzi. I mean, when they brought him over, I mean, man, it was just 4 months ago.
Yeah,
5 months ago. I mean, it wasn't. It seems longer to me that Kuzi was with the organization, but it was just 5 months ago, and they brought him over. He was coming out of the player assistance program, right? We know that he had some personal things going on. What those were, I'm not going to speculate on. I've got my ideas, but I'm not going. Anyway, there was some personal things going on with him and maybe his family, and he wasn't playing well in Washington at this time, and so he went to the player assistance program. Got done. Washington was like, "Hey, man, we don't really have a spot for you. You're gonna have to move on." They put him down at Hershey in the AHL, and he was going to play. He was ready. He's going to do it. And the story is he was in Charlotte, and the trade went through, and he hopped Dundon sent a plane to go get him. He hopped on the plane, and he was at practice like 2 hours later with the Canes. So it was a risk situation, right? But they only gave up, I believe they gave a 3rd round pick.
That was
Washington,
huh? Yeah, that was it. 3rd rounder.
Yeah, 3rd round pick, and Washington retained 50% of his cap hit. So you brought him in at $3.9 million to basically help you in the playoffs. And whether Rod used him, like he should have used him, as a discussion for another time. Obviously when he first came to Raleigh, he wasn't in game shape. Right. He'd been, again, on the couch in the player assistant program, really not working out, skating. So, he wasn't in game shape. And, just how stacked our roster was last year. There's just, he ended up getting scratched in the playoffs just to try to jumble things up again. I don't really agree with that. And that's well documented. But he left us with memories, right? This wasn't him showing up like Puljujärvi did 2 years ago and kind of skated around the ice a few times and left. He left us with some great memories. And I mean, he was fun to watch, and kind of jealous looking back at it that Washington got him in his prime and got to witness him night in and night out making these miraculous plays. We got it for what, 3 short months, and I mean, just memory after memory. None more important than the penalty shot in Game 5 against the Islanders. And Matthew P's here. Hey, buddy, I'm glad you're back. Glad you're with us. He says Kuzi cemented his Canes legend status with his penalty shot goal in Game 5 against the Isles. Absolutely. That's going to be one of my, not only my favorite Kuzi memory, but one of my top 10 memories that I witnessed in person in PNC Arena. So, yeah, any other thoughts on that?
And then the other thing in regards to Kuznetsov, when they initially put him on waivers up here with Washington, he said that he wanted a fresh start and just no one grabbed him because of the cap hit, which eventually led to the trade when we got him for 50% off. And, that works out for Washington too, because that's $4 million off the books for them, as well as us. So, I mean, I think that he talked about wanting to change the scenery. He got a small one going from Washington to Carolina. And I think now he's getting the ultimate change of scenery by going back to his home nation. I think that's what'll be good for him. I heard things living up here about, I'm not going to speculate on what it is, but it just sounds like to me that he wants to have a change of scenery, and that's about as extreme of a change of scenery as you can get in his line of work. So I think it'll be good for him. Carolina's got that $4 million they can use now. And, I know we'll probably get into it later and everything, but, when I look at this team, it looks a lot like the conference finals team. We have 4 of the same 6 defensemen. We have most of the same forwards, and a lot of other ones were replaced with comparable players. So I'm not too worried. I'm really not.
Yeah, no. And we'll talk about that. I kind of jotted that down over here to kind of remember to hit on, the kind of the state of the team and how I see this season. There's a lot of people in the fan base kind of sounding the alarm right now, and I think it's a little too soon to sound the alarm before we see what happens. And I'll elaborate on that in just a little bit. But yeah, you mentioned the 3.9, almost $4 million of increased cap space with the Kuzi move, and that kind of really 3 things, right? We said Kuzi gets to go back home if that's really what he wanted, which it sounds like it is. Gets to go back home, play hockey, in front of his family, in front, at home, raise his kids where he wants to, and in Russia and all that good stuff. And then for the organization, it kind of, you really didn't have a spot for him. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of us are like, hey, 2 second line center, but Rod doesn't see him as a second line center in this system or in his system. And whether or not I agree with that, again, a story for another time. But, just speaking on what I think the team's viewpoint is that he is the 4th line center. But then now you've got either Jack Drury or Jesperi Kotkaniemi going to have to play the wing. And, both of those guys are better in the center. And so, it's that relieves that logjam, right? 1. And then 2, you knew you had to sign Jack Drury, who was going to arbitration until today, and Seth Jarvis, who doesn't have to have a contract. You can give him a qualifying offer and roll with him next year, but that's not right to do. Not, after what he did last year and what he means to this organization and the player that he is, he deserves a little bit more money than, his qualifying offer. And you'd like to get him signed long-term and align him with Aho, align him with Slavin, get your core aligned. And then next season, he's already taken care of. And when you get a little bit more cap room, then you can kind of plan and add another piece to your core if you want to, another long-term piece. So now with that extra $4 million, you get Jack Drury taken care of today. Now you've got money to extend Seth Jarvis for, 8 years if he'll sign it. Maybe he wants something less. Maybe he wants something more like a 5-year, kind of like we saw Quentin Byfield out in LA get. That way he can cash in twice. But, I don't see it being less than 5 years for Jarvis. But who knows? Maybe he says, hey, give me 3 years, give me 2 years or whatever. But I don't think the organization wants to do that either.
I don't either.
I think they're going to get something long-term done with him. You have the money to do it now. And then you still have money left over to once we figure out what in the world's happening with Martin Necas. But like we alluded to earlier, it looks like he's going to be here. And, if he does go to arbitration, you've got enough money to pay that. And you don't risk losing him for nothing. So, that's what the Kuzi situation kind of is. It's good for both sides. Yeah, he's a good player, but he's got 1 year left, and this really ain't the year coming up here. I think this is kind of not a rebuild, but kind of like a stepping stone to 25-26, right? 2025-2026 season. I think that's what this year is, a stepping stone to kind of realign yourself, realign your future, get some guys, some bigger roles to learn to, all that. And then 2 years from now, your roster's shaping up to be something special, to go on, to have a nice long window to compete, which I think is shaping up to be better than the one we just left. So,
yeah. Now the team we're going to have in 2 to 3 seasons is going to be way better than the one we've had for the last 2. And the one we've had for the last 2 has probably been the best one we've ever had.
I agree. And I think it's, and we'll just talk about that now. Well, actually, we'll talk about that after we just detailed Jack Drury here, which, well, I guess we kind of already did. We announced his contract, and, he's probably going to be our fourth line center, maybe our second line center, but I think he'll start the year at fourth or third. I guess you could call him third if you want to call Stahl's line the fourth line or whatever, however you want to number these lines. But just going off of seasons past, that line's usually referred to as the fourth line. And so, he'll probably play there initially, and just like we saw last year, if KK doesn't get it together and he continues on his nosedive, then he can jump up and take care of that, and he's shown that he can play there. So
I think KK is going to get better this season. I really do. I mean, it's in the better interest of him and Carolina both to play better this season. And, like I said, the kid had a case of chronic bad luck. I really think that a lot of it is just pure bad luck. So I think that he'll get into a better groove next season. Because we've seen it, that he can do it. So this kind of simplifies problems for the Hurricanes. We essentially had, we basically had 5 left-handed centers and 2 right-handed guys who could potentially play center. Now that logjam is cleared. So this pretty much cements Roslovic's probably going to play the wing.
Right.
This cements that, you have a definitive bottom 6 now.
Yes.
So I think this is a good thing in that regard as well.
Well, who do we have here? AB. Since we have more cap, do we sign another guy? No, we don't, AB. So AB couldn't be here tonight because he has family in town, but he's trolling the comments section over here. No, AB, we don't sign another guy. We sign our RFAs. That's who we sign. And I really think that's all the money. Unless the organization knows that Jesper Fast is going to LTIR. If you know off the bat that you have $2.4 million that you're going to put in LTIR, which I believe is what Fast contract is, 2.4, yes. 2.9, 2.4, right?
2.4.
Yeah, so
I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure.
I think that's right.
I'm getting in the habit of not typing Cap Friendly and typing Puckpedia instead.
Yeah.
Because I still want to type Cap Friendly.
Yeah. I believe it's 2.4. So if, the last that we've heard and you know, a lot of this is just word of mouth, but there have been reports of fans seeing Jesper Fast around Raleigh in a neck brace.
I saw a picture on Reddit the other day that someone took of him, and if that wasn't Jesper Foss, he's got a twin that's also in a neck brace.
You never know. But yeah, I mean, if he's still in a neck brace right now, I mean, I don't know if it's precautionary. I don't know. That's a long time to be in a neck brace, but you know, is he? You know, will he play this season? I mean, we don't know. It's anybody's guess. And I mean, but maybe the organization knows, you're right. Maybe the front office knows, you know, his fate, or, you know, whether he has a chance to come back this season. And, you know, if they know that he's not going to play, or at least start the season, he's going to start the season on the LTIR, then that's $2.4 million of cap space that pops open right there, which, I mean, isn't really enough to bring in a big, you know, obviously a big name, but more depth. I mean, or you could use it in a trade of some sort, but AB KK needs to be traded and go to Europe. You know, I'm just going to block him.
Just block him. Don't care if he's normally on the show or not.
Yeah, I'll unblock him after we're done.
You know what? I'll tell you this. When KK bounces back next season, when he has 65 points, and we win a series in the playoffs because he scores the series-winning goal.
Oh,
AB, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to think of all the bad, the mean, evil things you said about Jesperi Kotkaniemi, which were not nearly as creative as the ones I came up with about how he's a good hockey player, even though he skates like a baby giraffe. I want you to remember all that. And in that particular moment, when you're at PNC and I'm probably up here, and you're yelling and you go, "Oh, wow, Brandon said that this would happen." And it still counts if it goes off of Jesper Fast's cup and goes in. As far as I'm concerned, that was just as much of Jesperi Kotkaniemi's goal as it was Jesper Fast's. If you think about it, Fast didn't really do anything. He just set up a screen.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, a little bit of a hot take there. Wow.
Oh, I know, but I like the kid, so I got to take up for him. I can't sit here and say that he sucks, because I don't think he does.
I like him too. I just wish he would score.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you know who wants to score really bad? He does. I really think he's going to get it together this year, though. It's like, I remember there was one episode UNAB did when you had Shane Willis on.
Yeah,
and he was talking about how the organization had already looked at Jesperi Kotkaniemi in the very unlikely event that Buffalo took Svechnikov instead of Dahlin. Like, there was 0% chance of that happening, but just in case, they were ready for it. And they were talking about how Shane was talking about how Jesperi's problems were not these big, gigantic, gaping issues. They were just little nuances in his game. They're like these little things he's doing wrong. That can be corrected in one off season, because I knew what he meant. So, and right now, KK's doing the best thing he can be doing. He's over in Finland with Jarvis having fun. They went to Aho's wedding.
Yep.
The best thing the kid can do for himself, loosen up a little bit, get yourself right mentally, and then come back ready to go. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm hopeful. Look, I hope, I pray that he gets it together this year. And I mean, you know, if you know, people say, where the scoring going to come from? Well, if he can figure it out and score, I mean, just give me 15, KK.
Yeah.
Just give me 15 goals.
He's got to do the little things right first, and then the scoring will come. He's
I
got to
think
get out of his own head.
Yeah. I think Jarvis, I think he's going to score. I mean, what did he score? 33? I think
he's getting 40 next year. Jarvis will get 40, I think.
I was going to say, you know, 35 or kind of, you know, stay in the same area, but 40, I mean, he could.
Well, Brendan Moore was talking about that on that one episode of ONG that you told us to go listen to when he was talking to Brendan Moore. He said these guys who have not played that have played big roles, Slavin, Aho, Jarvis, so on and so forth, with all the turnover we've had and all these younger kids coming up, the veteran guys, they're going to start having to play more. They're going to have to start being in more big moments than they were before. So, you know, a lot of the stuff that Pesce and Shea were doing last season, Chatfield and Orlov have got to step up and do that now. So everything's going to be a little bit different. So that's why I think Jarvis is going to score more, just as a byproduct of he's going to have to be deployed more often.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree. for the most part. I think Svetch is going to have a bigger year. Now that he's not necessarily coming off injury, he's got another off season to kind of, I mean, I know it's been a long time since injury. He played a whole season for the most part, but there was the mental aspect of coming off of an ACL tear that won't be there this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
and he
maybe,
also didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying maybe he has a bigger year and can kind of score like we know he has the potential to.
Yeah, because I mean, he didn't train to play last summer. All he did was rehab.
Absolutely.
So
right. That's
he
what I'm saying.
basically came back from like, he wasn't doing what you do in a normal off-season workout where you're doing a bunch of cardio, calisthenics, and strength training and stuff. It was all about the ACL. So that's not the case this time, thankfully.
Yeah. All right. Hey, some more to talk about. Before we do, I'm going to take a pause here, and we're going to hear from one of our new sponsors. Session 51 is sponsored by BetterHelp. So a little secret that, not a lot of people know about is, I served in Afghanistan in the military, came home just like a lot of soldiers did with some kind of lingering effects from that, and it's kind of been a struggle for me at times to deal with. And I've been through a lot of, therapy, I guess you could say, to try to deal with some of my thoughts and emotions from some things that, occurred over there. But, when I was kind of going through that, there wasn't a lot of, opportunity outside of, going to sit down with somebody face to face at a clinic and, kind of it's the hustle, the strat, this, what's the word I'm looking for? The stress of having to go and go somewhere and deal with it, and the hassle that comes with that, which is a big thing to do for some people that are going through things like that. So, the therapy did benefit me, but the big thing for me was always taking the step out to go and seek the help. Right. That was what kind of hung me up. But with BetterHelp, if you're thinking of, trying to start some therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try, right? It's entirely online. So a lot of that stepping out and taking that step forward and going somewhere and sitting down with somebody and kind of unpacking all of that, that's out the window. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if the one that you have just isn't working, or you would like to try another one. So this is a new sponsor for us. And I think it's great, right? So you can stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. All right. So yeah, a little bit of emotions there. But really, I think that's awesome that BetterHelp has joined up with THPN and use it, take advantage of it. 10% off for anybody out there that wants to give it a shot.
Important message there, though, in general, that you just had. That's a really important thing to put out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's true. Like that's what I struggled with, right? It wasn't necessarily the therapy or going to talk to somebody, about situations or whatever. It's the courage to take that step and, admit, hey, I got an issue. I got a problem here. I got to go take care of it, or I'm going to lose my family, my life, my happiness, or whatever. And, hey, lose the pride, go get the help.
I agree.
So, all right, let's bring it back to hockey. What do you think now? So we kind of talked about Natchez a little bit, but I'm kind of expecting right now that the Kuzi situation happened, they signed Drury. I don't think the organization wants to go to arbitration with Natchez. Do you think something gets done before arbitration? Or do
Yes.
you think this is going?
I absolutely think that it gets done before arbitration. Yeah, the reason I think it gets done before arbitration now is they were probably a little bit they were probably feeling a little pigeonholed by the amount of money that they had available. That $4 million that you freed up with Kuznetsov, you know definitively how much you're paying Jack Drury, and then all you have to do is say, okay, we have this much for Natchez, we have this much for Jarvis. How are we going to divide it up? One thing we know definitively when it comes to Natchez is he's probably not going to get a lot of term. I can definitely see this being a 2-year type of thing. They don't see him as much, at least not at the moment. They don't see him as much of a long-term piece as they see Jarvis. Jarvis is going to be a Hurricane for life. So, along with Svetch, Slavin, Aho. So, Natchez, I think they at least want to keep him on the roster, figure things out with him. The other good thing about Natchez, in the event that, let's say, things don't work out with him here again, and you get closer to the trade deadline and Carolina's outside of the playoff picture, or they're in the playoff picture, but we want something different and some sort of good one-for-one trade pops up. Hey, here's Natchez. You send us back that second line right-handed center that we want, for example, or, you know, it just depends on the landscape of the league at the time. But I can definitely see this getting worked out, whether they plan on keeping him long-term or not. I think that for now they're going to get it sorted out, because that way we know that we have him as an asset, whether he's a long-term asset, a trade asset, whatever, and he knows that he has job security, he's under contract, and he can say, hey, maybe I want to go here. And then they know exactly what they're moving, and there's no unknowns for the people on the other side of the trade, because he wouldn't be an RFA anymore. He would have a contract. So I'm still on board with keeping Natchez. I know you and I disagree on the whole trying him out at center thing, but we're both on board with keeping him. He doesn't make you worse.
Right. Yeah. I kind of tend to agree with the coach that he's not a center. I know you've advocated for him to get a shot, and I'm really okay with that if it's preseason. But I just think he just needs to own the fact that he's a great scoring winger. I'd be okay with them moving him up on Aho's line and moving Jarvis down and play with KK on the second line, or Drury, or whoever gets that spot. But I would love to see a first line of Svetch, Aho, and Natchez. Svetch and Natchez, what was it, 2 seasons ago, played on that line with KK.
And I like that line.
They were cooking in the beginning of the year. You remember?
Yeah, I love that line. That one was I'd like to see that one come back maybe too.
Could.
And then if you put Jarvis with KK, that might get KK going again too.
Yeah, right. That's what I would love to see KK get a shot. Maybe you put let's see, maybe you put KK as the center with Jarvis, and I don't know, maybe one of the rookies, maybe Bradley Nadeau or Jordan Martin. I mean, I don't know, but I think Nate. Look, you remember last season, we would go, well, really 2 seasons in a row, we would go into overtime in the regular season. We play 3-on-3, and they'd always put Aho out there with Natchez. And I'm reminded of Whalers night, the Devils. Natchez goes in, throws a shot. Aho bunts the rebound out of the air into the net. Aho and Natchez could have some good chemistry. I think Natchez should play top line wing. I mean, give it a shot, and then
he says he wants more minutes. If you're with Aho, you're getting most of them.
Well, right, and I think I think he'll be obviously be on the power play, and I think he's going to kill penalties this year. So, I mean, he's going to get a shot. I just think that he just needs to own the wing. He needs to be the best winger he could possibly be. He's going to score a ton. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. It's going to be interesting. I hope he sticks around. I just don't see a return that in a trade that is better than Marty Natchez. I think it would take more to get a bigger return, and but a 1-for-1 trade, for his rights or whether it be a sign and trade or whatever. I just don't see your return benefiting you this season more than Martin Necas would.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
I,
that and it's like, oh, go ahead.
no, I'll just go ahead. You're good.
Oh, well, that and the other thing with it is with Natchez, he apparently doesn't hate playing here that bad because we tried to trade him, 3 times? Like,
Yeah.
and he doesn't hate it that much. So it's like, I think that things will get worked out. And this is not the first time in history that something like this has went down where a player asked for a trade, didn't get one, stayed with their organization, and then everything worked out. Jake DeBrusk a few years ago in Boston, it was well publicized that he wanted out of there. He never left, and he played out the rest of his contract, left the organization on good terms. In our own organization, Jack Drury at one point a couple of years ago requested a trade because he felt like he didn't have any room to move up. And now he's becoming a mainstay in the lineup. Brett Pesce also at one point, I want to say it was before he signed his contract here that he just came off of, requested a trade because he was afraid that he had no upward mobility. So things like this get worked out. It is a business, and they're all professionals. They'll put it behind them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with it. But before we get to our next topic, I got one more ad to hear from, and we're not going to do the little ad cut scene because I don't want to kill Caveman's ears again. Apparently, the audio for that is really loud if you're wearing
It kind of
headphones.
is.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to adjust the audio on that from the platform here, but I have to figure that out. So we'll skip that, and I'll just go straight into the ad read. Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Again, bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. All right. That's DraftKings. The thing I want to get to now is there seems to be a lot of fans sounding the alarm, right? They believe that, given how good this team was, at least on paper last season, and not just on paper, they were good. They just didn't get it done again in the playoffs. The team was good though. You do a little bit better in the goaltending area. We're going on to the conference final, and who knows what happens. But a lot of fans mad and angry that the team is how it is right now, right? A lot of depth, not a lot of scoring up front. Some people have the opinion that our defense took a step back. I don't agree with that. I think the defense is very comparable to how it was last season. Just some different names. And, there's a lot of personal feelings with that. A lot of fans in this fan base love Brett Pesce, and I'm one of them, right? He was a great Hurricane. He played well. He did, did a lot of great things during his time here. So I get it. Brady Shea, from the time, he was obviously here a shorter amount of time than Brett Pesce, but he kind of grew on everybody because he was a great Hurricane as well. Um, I saw a video today of Brady Shea in the Nashville locker room, and he's like, "Hey, Smashville, can't wait to get." And it just, like
It's
whatever,
weird,
dude.
wasn't it?
It is weird.
It's
It
so
is.
weird seeing him not wearing our sweater anymore.
Yeah. So it's gonna suck when I think the third game of the season, New Jersey comes to PNC Arena. The third game of the season, second home game. So we're going to have to welcome back Steph Nason, who I grew to love, and Brett Pesci. Anyway, I'm getting on totally off topic here, going down that rabbit hole. But the defense. I don't think we got worse. I don't think we got worse defensively. Offensively, the forward group, yes. Obviously, we took a little step back, but we may have taken a step back in terms of goal scoring or high end skill or whatever you want to say. Obviously the Teravainen, losing Teravainen, I think, it hurts. I mean, he's a good playmaker, good top six guy, kills penalties, good defensively, scores. He's a great 200-foot all around player. We're going to feel that. Obviously Jake Gensel. You lose a guy like Jake Gensel, that obviously hurts. But my argument to that is we didn't have him that long anyway. We won without Jake Gensel. And one could argue we won without Teravainen last season in the playoffs. So I understand people look at that lineup and say, hey, where does the scoring come from? I get that. But what this season is about, and before I even go into this, we knew this was coming. All you had to do is look at the roster, go to Cap Friendly before, look at the roster and the contracts, and you knew that this was going to be a transition year. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't a surprise. We could have gotten a lot more done last year if we wanted to keep some of these guys, right? We could have got some of these contracts done, but the player has to agree to sign it. If the player says, hey, I've got one more year left, I want to bet on myself, I think I'm going to get paid. Especially guys like Brady Shea, Brett Pesci. There was reports that Brett Pesci was going to be traded this time last year. We were talking about Brett Pesci being traded. And, so he didn't want to sign. He wanted term. We weren't going to give him term. I don't agree with the amount of term that the Devils gave him.
They're going to regret that in a couple of years.
They may regret it. I think they will as well. But, the player has to want to sign the contract. The agent has to want to sign the contract for that to happen. A lot of guys said, no, I'm going to bet on myself this season. This is our last year in this window with this group, and I'm not. So Pesci said no. Brady Shea knew. I mean, he came off at 18 goals the 2 seasons ago. If they would have signed him last year, he would have gotten just as much money as he got this time. And that could have been the organization saying, hey, do we really want to sign him long-term coming off of 18 goals, or do we want to wait and see what happens this year? And then, maybe we can get him cheaper. I don't know. Teravainen, I think they were ready to move on from. I think he was gone, 2 seasons ago when he kind of laid an egg. And then Steph Nason, I think the writing was on the wall there too. He played himself out of Carolina just because of, the amount of money that he could get. So it's just that natural rotation or that natural turnover that occurs in professional sports. There's no way around it. In the cap world, the salary cap world, it's just the way it is. And given the fact that we, the high turnover that we had, the fact that Don Waddell left right after the season with all this work to do, and from what I understand, from what a lot of the reports say, it was a surprise to Tulsky and company. Right? They didn't really realize it was. I mean, they may have known a couple days in advance, but everybody thought Don would be here. and then he leaves, and now it's like, hey, we have to play catch up. We got to, we got a ton of free agents. And so if you look back on that whole timeline and that whole process, and the fact that I think they came out of it unscathed and like better than anybody could have expected. Your thoughts?
So here's the first thing that we have to consider with this regarding some of the departures we've had. And you've mentioned Pesci, Shea, Teravainen, Nason in particular. Looking back at the team that went to the conference finals, we have 4 of those 6 defensemen, of which one of those pairs is split up now, but you can put them back together if you had to between Ghost and Chatfield. So the defense is still intact. With Sean Walker, you got a guy who maybe he's not as defensively good as Brett Pesci, but he has a little bit more of a scoring touch. Brett Pesci had 3 goals, and I witnessed 2 of them in person. So you have to have production from everywhere. So you have that. Shane Gostisbehere, we already knew he was a good fit. We go and we got him back. We were, 0 for 15 on the power play in the first 3 games against the Rangers. It was time to shake stuff up, not only with the defense for the sake of 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill. We needed to shake up the power play. And the last time we brought Shane Gostisbehere in for the power play, he brought it back to life. He very well could do that again. I do not think our defense took a step back, and I definitively will say that I think it got a little bit better in terms of its ability to produce. And Carolina has a team defense mindset anyway. So bringing in guys on the blue line who can just, add a little bit more offense and everything and still do what they need to do within the parameters of the system, that's where a guy like Sean Walker fits. That's where a guy like Shane Gostisbehere fits when we already know that he's going to fit. Now, when you look at the forwards, we got to the conference finals 2 years ago without Teravainen because he broke his hand.
Yeah.
Yes, you lost Steph Nason. I hated to lose Steph Nason, but we got William Carrier for a little bit less and longer term. Carrier is a good player that has a very similar skill set to Nason. The only thing is he's a little bit injury prone. But other than that,
he plays physical.
Yeah, he's a very similar player to Nason. He loves to do all the same stuff. He scores the greasy goals. He goes in there. He lays the body on guys. He's going to be the net front dude on the power play and everything. Carrier was a good ad in that regard. And like I said, that contract's really good. $2 million a year for 6 years. That's a good deal for someone like him. You basically got Steph Nason for longer, or a similar player to Steph Nason for longer. Additionally, as far as Steph Nason's scoring goes, Bradley Nadeau could come in as a rookie and replicate those types of numbers. Not necessarily with the greasy goals, but Nadeau's a sniper. He likes to work into the high slot. He's not going to score the same way that Steph Nason did, but he can even possibly eclipse that amount. So I'm not going to sound the alarm on this team. I'm expecting to take a step back.
Yeah.
But we had the best team we ever had, and we haven't won a game in the conference finals with it in 2 years.
Yeah.
It was time to change it up a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm going to go through some of these comments quick. Dan, good evening, Griff. I'm guessing that's anyway. And Brandon.
That's supposed to be an emoji, I think.
Like maybe
when he typed it in on, because he typed it in on X, so it came over here kind of funky.
Yeah. It is looking like more and more that Nadeau, Ungersorum, and Blake get a chance to play this year. Yeah. One or a mix of, we'll see how that plays out, but I agree with you. I think we're going to see at least one. The way the roster's kind of shaping up, I don't know if we'll see all 3, but at least one. And I would be willing to bet that would be Bradley Nadeau. Some people put Jackson Blake over Ungersorum. Depends on what your preference is there, but what really matters is what the organization thinks. What else do we have here?
I think they'll all be mainstays in the lineup within the next couple of years, though.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm excited about Jackson Blake just because the dude was a Hobie Baker finalist and he lost to Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, agree. I think we'll see. We'll see how it all works out. I kind of tend to lean toward Ungersorum right now, but I think whether if they don't make the Canes roster, they will definitely be in Chicago, which is a good thing because they'll be playing the system that we play and kind of learning there. So maybe they don't all 3 crack the NHL roster, but at least they're in the system and they're not in Europe. Let's see, what else do we got here? Matthew P, I think that it might have to be an arbitrated deal for Natchez, but I hope Brandon is right. Yeah, I hope Brandon's right too.
I really think it'll get done by then, just because like we had a variable with Kuznetsov, that's out the window. We had a variable with how much is Drury going to get paid. Okay, that's handled now. So that they literally have two like they just have to slice up this money between two people. So that's why I think it's going to get done. The problem was very much simplified by Kuznetsov's contract getting terminated.
And I think, to be honest, I think that I think the team, if they reach a deal with him before arbitration, I think he gets more than he gets in arbitration.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They take 3 years, right? They take the most recent 3 years, and the team argues, the player argues, and if you take the 3-year, he had a decent year this past year. He had a really good year 2 years ago, and the year before was god awful. Remember, we were trying to ship him to Arizona.
Yeah.
So, you've got a really bad year, a really good year, and you got one that's kind of in the middle. So, is that worth $7 million?
No.
I don't think it is.
But this makes perfect sense what you're saying about like if he settles it before it gets to arbitration, he has a much higher chance, because if it goes to arbitration, when they account for, they're really going to take that first year of those 3 into heavy account. And then the organization can argue, hey, he's shown signs that he could potentially regress back into only putting up these types of numbers. This is why we want to pay him, let's say, 5.75 or something like that. Whereas if they just don't go to arbitration, the organization could say, hey, look, you're an incredibly talented player. Here's 6.75 by 2 seasons, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah. So I think if it comes out of arbitration, I think you're looking at somewhere between 5.5 and 6. If I was a betting man, which I kind of am, I would say somewhere between 5.5 and 6. Some people think 7 or plus. I don't think he's coming out of arbitration with anything more than 6. And I think if you take the cap space that's left, if you give Jarvis 7.75 or 8, you've got enough to give Natchez $6 million or 6.2. So I think if they get it done before arbitration, I think Natchez makes more. Maybe I think 3 years at $6 million would be fine.
I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that, because that wouldn't be hard to move either in the event that you're like, okay, definitively this is not working out. Because as far as I know, you can't put trade protection on a contract out of arbitration, and you can't trade him for the first year. No, that's offer sheets. Excuse me. So basically,
no, you can't. He can't move for a year, from what I understand.
From arbitration.
Yes.
Okay, so I did have that right.
The organization is on the hook for the full amount of.
Okay, I thought so. I second guessed myself there, but I could have swore when it came to arbitration and offer sheets, you cannot trade him for the first year.
Right. Well, right. Well, I don't think he can move at all for the first year. I may be wrong on that, but I looked this up a couple weeks ago, and I think that's the case. I think there's full no move for until maybe it's January 1st in the calendar year, maybe, or something. I don't know, but I have to look that up. Anyway, a couple more. Let's see, another from Matthew P. We only took a step back and forward on paper. I think Nadeau can really make a difference. He scores 30 and is a real contender for the Calder. You heard it here first. Hot take. Matthew P. thinks Bradley Nadeau will score 30 and is a real contender for the Calder. Hey, look, you never know. If that happens, Matthew P., I will shout you out from the highest mountaintops. I'll remember this.
I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. I mean, the kid's shot mechanics alone are ridiculous.
I mean, hey, he could do it. We will see.
He's always Nadeau reminds me a lot of Jason Robertson. I think that's why I like him so much.
Yeah. We will see. Another one from Matthew P. Yeah, Shea and Pesci are great players and even better people, but they were both overpaid in term and dollars. Good for them, but hope those contracts will not age well. Agree.
Especially Pesci's. Shea's might, but Pesci, no, 0 chance.
Caveman NC, when is the arbitration hearing?
That starts on the 20th.
Yeah, Matthew P responded to that.
Okay.
7:20 is when they start. I don't know when Nature specifically has hearing. Yeah, I don't think they've put out a schedule yet of hearings, but they will start Saturday, right, the 20th, and go through August 3rd. So it's a 2-week window that arbitration hearings happen. So I think, if it gets done, I think it's going to get done this week. So we'll see. But, I also think today is a kind of sign, once the Kuznetsov news dropped and the Drury news dropped, I bet you we get a Jarvis deal here real soon. And, whether I think Jarvis is getting done, whether Natchez goes to arbitration or not. So, this week, I think we're going to see a Jarvis deal maybe Friday.
I could see that.
We'll see. Because
Yeah,
he's partying in Finland right now.
he is.
So he can't
That
sign
was
anything.
funny in the in that one of Waddell's last press conference. I don't know if Finland has ever seen a Jarvis. And that makes sense because Finns and Swedes are very reserved people in a lot of cases. And then you have someone like excuse me, you have someone like Jarvis who is just this little ball of energy and unexpected everything, just going over there and raising all kinds of havoc.
I saw him post something on Instagram. It was like, haven't understood a single word yet.
Oh yeah, and it has KK up in the. There's
Yeah.
another one where it has KK doing the thing up against the camera and everything.
Yeah, it was great. Another one from Matthew P. Either way, Nature's contract will come first, and then Jarvis. I think maybe I don't think Nature. I think now that Kuzi is waived and they got that money back, I don't think it matters. I think they know what they want to pay Jarvis, and it either comes down to him agreeing or not. I mean, I guess that they negotiate if he disagrees, but I don't think Jarvis depends on Natchez. I don't think Jarvis is getting any more than $8 million. I think that's the 8x8 would be the top. But
I'm good with that.
Who knows? What do I know? We'll see.
8x8 would be perfect for Jarvis, if you ask me.
I think so too. 8x8,
I'd pay him
8x7.
that.
Huh?
I'd pay him that in a heartbeat.
I would too. It will still age well. So I don't know if Natchez depends on Jarvis. I think they have enough cap space now to deal with both of them, no matter what. So, and then I firmly believe that we're starting the season with Jesper Foss on LTIR, and I'm not even sure he plays this season. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think that's all I got. I think, do you have anything lingering or you want to bring up or talk about before we get out of here?
Not really that I can think of. The one thing that I've seen a lot of people talking about is how different the schedule is this year compared to seasons past. And one thing that I do want to bring up, Carolina's going to have a pretty arduous schedule this year. However, the entire league is kind of going to have an arduous schedule this year because that 2-week break in February has changed everything. Where they're having the Four Nations face off.
Yeah.
So, yes, Carolina's going to have a lot of back-to-backs. The good thing about that is Brind'Amour put such a big emphasis on conditioning, and the team ultimately got younger.
Yeah.
So, it's not the worst thing in the world for, a team that likes to fight wars of attrition like Carolina does. But a lot of people are super worried that part of the reason that the team's going to take a step back is because of how hard the schedule is. That's not the first time it's happened. The 2018-2019 season, we had one of the worst schedules in the league.
Well, I actually like the schedule this year.
Oh, as a fan, I love it.
Well, I think I even think from a team perspective. Look, last year there was a lot of especially toward the end of the year, there was a lot of, hey, go up to Philly for one game, then come back to Raleigh, then play one game, then go to Florida for one game, then come back to, there was a lot of that. I felt like, this schedule, I don't believe that there's, they're kind of, the road trips are kind of divided. There's a few games on the road, a few games at home, a few games on the road, a few games at home. So there's more of a rhythm and flow to the schedule rather than, jumping up for 2 days and then back home for 2 days and then go here for 2, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I kind of noticed that the kind of the pattern of the road trips and the homestands flow a lot better. The road trip at the beginning of the season is a little better. I know that I just say that, and I know they go Tampa at home, then go to Tampa, and then come back for Jersey to start the season. But after that, for the most part, the flow is pretty solid. So I think that's better. They kind of they go through Canada first this time, before it gets really
Get it out of the way.
Yeah, before it gets really flipping cold. So, get that one out of the way. And, I think the cold affects them, after being in, living in Raleigh and playing in the Eastern Conference. They don't really go to Western Canada a lot. So, yeah, I like the schedule. I mean, yeah, I know there's a lot of, it's condensed in certain areas, but I thought there was times last season where we sat too long and you could tell the team was out of rhythm.
Yes. And then I think a lot of people's concerns were the number of back-to-backs. Carolina appears to have more than everyone else. I think they have 16 and the max another team has is 14. I'm personally not worried about that. I saw a lot of people online that were. Yeah. So that's just my personal take on it, is even though the schedule is going to be tougher in some ways, I think that ultimately it'll kind of benefit them in that regard. One thing I'm considering doing, there's one point I'll have to take a couple of days off from work to do it, but I want to say it's in like late November or something like that. They play in New Jersey and they play in Philadelphia the next day. So I might just drive up to New Jersey and then just drive straight to Philadelphia, because it wouldn't take me that long to get there and then come back here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. This team has always done pretty good on the second half of back-to-back too. So yes. I've never really seen it as an issue. And I don't anticipate it being an issue. We'll see. Again, what do I know?
Oh, you know plenty. Don't let AB tell you otherwise.
Oh, I definitely know more than AB.
Yeah, well, he's probably sitting there like, why are my messages not going through?
No, I didn't really block him. I couldn't do that.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I was going to mess with him about that.
No, I didn't. Well, we can just pretend like we did.
Yeah, he won't. He doesn't have to know.
All right, Brandon. Way, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Enjoyed it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
But for everybody out there, thank you also for listening. Thanks for those that joined us live, and for those that are listening afterward, either on YouTube or in the audio podcast form. We appreciate your support. If you could, please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, so we can help this thing grow. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And once you go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, just drop me a comment and say, hey, I subscribed. We'll give you a shout out, and we're going to get some merch going here too. I think, we got a shirt here. We're going to get some merch going, and would love to do some giveaways on that coming up. But yeah, drop us a comment. Let us know you subscribed. If you are listening to this on the podcast form, follow us wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on X at Caniac Sessions, Instagram as well, Facebook. And yeah, rate us, review us, any help that you guys can get, just so we can help grow this thing. We've grown so much. We've been doing this coming up on, it'll be a year in here in about 2 weeks. I believe our first session was last August, the beginning of August. So coming up on a year, we've already grown exponentially from that. So we really appreciate all you out there that have been along this ride with us. I'm looking forward to next season. Yeah. All right. That's all I got. This has been session 51, and we will see you guys in session 52. Bye.
Bye.